My name is Kerry Smith, and today I'm going to be talking to you about the issue of funding assistive technology for students with learning disabilities. A learning disability, as defined by the Learning Disabilities Association of America, are neurologically based processing problems. They might relate to getting information into the brain, input, storing and making sense of this information, organization, storing and later retrieving this information, memory, and then getting this information back out, output. According to GreatSchools.com, 2/3 of secondary students with learning disabilities are reading 3 or more grade levels below their grade. Students with learning disabilities use assistive technology to help them keep up with their peers and to keep learning more and more things. A person can be average or even above average intelligence and still struggle with keeping up with their peers when they have a learning disability. Learning disabilities are invisible. I have a learning disability and I use assistive technology to keep up with my peers, and no one knows. Don't take my case for the only one though. Look at the CEO of Kinko's FedEx, Paul Orfaleo. He also suffers from a learning disability. Today I will go into a little bit more depth about what a learning disability is. Then I'll talk to you about assistive technology, give you some examples. Once I have defined these, I will talk about how schools are making sure that students get these and the legislation behind getting this assistive technology. Once I have gone over that, I will give you an argument for increasing the funding for assistive technology. Following that argument, I will present a counter-argument about why we should keep the funding for assistive technology at the same level. Once I have presented both arguments fairly, I will sum everything up for you. Most people are surprised to discover just how common learning disabilities are. There are 4 main types of learning disabilities, and I have 2 of them. One that I have is called dyslexia, trouble with reading and spelling. The other learning disability that I suffer from is auditory processing disorder, when you have trouble understanding what people are saying to you when they say it out loud. A third type of learning disability that people suffer from is called dyscalculia. It's when you have trouble with math and remembering the different rules of math and being able to, most importantly, apply those rules to the math problem. The 4th most common form of learning disabilities is dysgraphia, when a student has trouble writing and their penmanship is illegible. There are 2.4 million school-aged children with learning disabilities in special education classes in the United States today. Just to give you a frame of reference, that is a population of metropolitan Vienna, Austria. Despite this added challenge of learning disability, 67% of students with all forms of learning disabilities are able to get their high school diploma. So, you may be asking, what is assistive technology? Assistive technology, or AT for short, is defined by the Assistive Technology Industry Association as any item, piece of equipment, software, or product system that is used to increase, maintain, or improve the functional capabilities of individuals with disabilities. AT can range from being fairly low-tech to being pretty high-tech. At the low end of the spectrum, we have a large print textbook for students who have trouble reading the small little print of textbooks. At the high end of the spectrum, we have completely overhauled computers with large keyboards, and we also have computer programs such as Bag of Tricks, which helps students with dyscalculia. Bag of Tricks guides students through each step of the math problem, but it doesn't tell them the answer. While the concept of AT for LD students sounds logical, students still have trouble obtaining these AT devices, so the federal government stepped in. The Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, or IDEA, of 1997 helps to ensure the students' rights to AT. IDEA mandates that assistive technology devices and services be considered for each child with a disability. Another important piece of legislation is the Americans with Disabilities Act, or ADA, which provides rights not only for students with learning disabilities, but all individuals with disabilities to have assistance and modifications to accommodate them in their school environment and in their work environment. Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act states that no individual may be denied access to an accommodation that will allow her to perform activities of her normal life, such as going to school, learning, and reaching her full potential. If a psychologist deems it appropriate for the student to use AT, the school cannot deny the student the AT. The federal government clearly believes in the long-term benefits of AT for students with LDs. The use of AT during the school year can have a lasting impact on the life of a student with LD. It can get the student to become more independent and have more self-confidence. For example, without AT, a student with an LD that has problems with organization and specifically organizing their thoughts for an essay would have to write down each of their individual thoughts on little note cards and have the teacher help them move around the note cards so they can see how different forms of an essay or different layouts of an essay would work and figure out which one is the most logical. However, using AT, a student with LD can put their ideas into a computer program and they can learn to manipulate their ideas on their own. One specific computer program that could help them is called Inspiration. In Inspiration, the students would put their ideas in a little bubble and then they can move the bubbles all around, connect some bubbles, disconnect other bubbles, and they can see how the ideas flow together and figure out which one makes the most sense. Students with learning disability have a newfound independence because of these AT devices. They'll be more likely to speak up in class and more likely to participate when working in small groups. Students with learning disabilities will be more confident in interactions with teachers and also with students without learning disabilities. The student learns to trust themselves and they learn confidence that they carry with them for the rest of their lives. AT helps students realize that they can achieve their potentials even if they have a learning disability and they have been told that they couldn't before. School districts are strapped for every last dollar though, so they don't have any more money to put towards AT devices despite the increasing number of students diagnosed with LDs. Parents, schools, and school psychologists might not even be aware of the full range of AT devices available for students with LDs. The field of AT is constantly evolving, and experts who know about AT need to get out there and need to tell people about these devices because advertisers are looking to appeal to the wide audience. They're not looking to appeal to a certain demographic of students with LDs. For example, I have an iPad at school, and that is my form of AT. However, when Apple first put out their ads for iPads, they're talking about you can look up a recipe for dinner while you're cooking in the kitchen. You can make a home video using the camera. You can Skype someone in another state. They don't say you can magnify the text of a textbook on the iPad. You can record a lecture to listen to it later. You can highlight in a textbook on the iPad. And these are the AT things that I use my iPad for. However, despite the federal government's legal regulations that the schools have to provide the AT for students with LDs, it is an unfunded mandate, which means that the school has to provide the money on their own. They have to reach into their pool of money and spend it for the AT devices for the LD students. There are a few federal grants and outside foundation grants that help schools offset the cost of AT for LD students. However, to apply for these grants, teachers must fill out a copious amount of paperwork and spend lots and lots of hours filling out this paperwork. Teachers in public schools with increasing sizes and classes do not have the time to fill out these papers. And to win one of these grants, their application has to stand out from thousands of other applications. And if they get rejected, then they have to spend the time filling out the paperwork again. In the United States, it is estimated that as many as 1 out of 5 people have some form of a learning disability. It is estimated that 1 million school-aged children suffer from a learning disability. As this number rises, the question becomes how best to help these children. Public awareness for AT is nowhere near as high as it needs to be. We need more people out there talking about what you can do with AT and what can be used as AT. As IDEA states, schools must provide the tools for a child to obtain an appropriate education. The problem for schools is that while the law mandates that the tools be provided, there is no federal money allotted for these devices. schools must come up with the money on their own. Advocates for AT for every student with LD say that the technology tools can help the student gain independence and self-confidence. These are skills that the student can use not just in the school, but in their life, in the workplace, in their social environments. Advocates for less expensive ways to help students with LDs argue that AT is too expensive for schools, especially now that school budgets are strapped for every last penny. While these two sides work to find a middle ground, more and more students continue to be diagnosed with LDs, which makes the situation even tougher for both sides. Thank you.
Okay.